I'd like to kick off this video today with a statement. Fate Samurai Remnant is an incredible game. I immersed myself in its world on the PlayStation 5 and have recently brought the adventure to a close. Now, a detailed review will soon be published on xpcorner.net, our website, as well as featured on the XP Corner channel. Do not be surprised though to find me there raving about the game. It ranks amongst the best warrior style games I've experienced in a long time. Unfortunately though, it's more difficult to find that level of enthusiasm when it comes to the Nintendo Switch version. Now, it's not all bad, don't get me wrong, you just need to be aware of a few things before you do head in. My name's Alex, this is SwitchCorner, and if you do enjoy the video today, subscribe, it helps us out a huge amount. So first, let me tell you a little about the game. It is from KOEI TECMO, a studio that's knocked out some incredible games on the system, and the effort here, it is not lost on me. They've done a fantastic job on many of their releases. I also think it is clear they've done everything they could do. So the story, and it's the fourth year of the Keian Era. Edo Japan enjoys peace after years of strife. However, the tranquility is disrupted by the waxing moon ritual, basically a fierce battle involving 7 pairs of masters and servants, and they're each vying for the waxing moon's vessel, a powerful wish granter. What makes this narrative so enjoyable is kind of the element of surprise. I guess our lead character remains oblivious to the looming destiny that will change his life. His involvement, in fact, with this war is only revealed when a symbol surfaces on his hand in the opening moments of the game. Basically, before he knows it, he's being assisted by a servant named Saber and is caught up in mystical battles. Gameplay wise, it's a Muso or Warriors game, meaning the game constantly floods you with tons of enemies and you must now take them down. While some entries do get stale in the gameplay loop given their relative simplicity and repetition, this one had me engaged throughout thanks to a bigger focus on its narrative, more exploration, and just quite frankly, a more interesting world than most. It reminded me at moments of a Yakuza game, a series that desperately needs to get ported to the Switch. So basically here we're going to be exploring small towns, completing a huge number of quests. I'm somewhere near the 40-hour mark to give you an idea of its scale over on the PlayStation build, and I've been absolutely consumed by not only the main quest line, but the side missions you do come across as well. What elevates this game for me is the wealth of RPG elements that are baked in. We get a skill tree, so we can gradually adapt our moveset. Swords get 4 types of fittings to improve attacks. There's magical attacks both from our lead or Saber, who can assist with a simple call to jump in function. There's even an element of experimentation which I've really enjoyed, as you will be mixing and matching different moves to see what delivers best in war. I also love the multiple fight styles we actually get to work with here. We can change our stance on the fly, and the game immediately introduces us to a single sword style as well as a dual sword style as well. It also boasts an impressive selection of options. There's multiple difficulty options which will be appreciated, especially since the combat can actually surprisingly be quite challenging, particularly as players familiarize themselves with the dodge functionality. And then most enemy units have a central heavy, and they can both take and deal significant damage. So yeah, mastering all of the different mechanics is going to be essential, and the game's not scared to show you a game over screen at all. I actually hit one in the very first battle of the game. Additionally then, players can set dialogues to play automatically. You can toggle of blood effects on or off, and you can even invert controls, always a popular option. It offers basically everything you could desire in that regard. Then the voice acting is in Japanese, but the performances are absolutely fantastic. Sadly though, that's not what we're here to talk about. I could go on for a good while here about how good this game is, but sadly on the Nintendo Switch, it is let down by performance. So let's start with the elements I think we all expect. Load screens are not frequent, but when they do pop up, they are noticeably longer. Additionally, visually, I think the game absolutely maintains a large portion of, let's say, its visual flair, but you will see downgrades. Most noticeably, that's going to be popping as you do explore these small towns. There's no open world to worry about, so I wouldn't say it gets too crazy, a simple map system. But yeah, it is going to be noticeable throughout, maybe like, just towards the end of the screen. Most noticeably, that's going to be popping as you explore these small towns. Now, there's no open world to worry about, but when you're kind of on foot, you're definitely going to see it in the distance. Then as well, the pixelation, especially on the character models, is clear. That's actually in the cutscenes as well, using the in-game engine. Finally, a lot of the visual effects, they've of course been dialed back, especially the particle effects. I'd describe it as losing some of its impact because there's some seriously flashy moves in here, but it still delivers in making you feel like a badass. The only other thing I would say is when things get kind of too flashy on screen with all of the attacks going off at once, it can lose a little bit of its clarity and it is a little bit harder to make out what is actually happening. So here's the real issue, and you've probably guessed it, you've probably noticed it for yourself. In fact, from the video footage today, the frame rate is all over the place. It's currently unlocked, and this is a case where I'd love to see it get locked out at 30. Right now, the highest I have seen after analysing a fair few sequences is 40 frames per second, but it rarely maintains that for more than a few moments. I'd say 30 to 35 in quieter locations would be a good expectation of something consistent. However, again, it frequently drops. Surprisingly, the worst of it is not in combat so far, maybe a couple of hours into the Switch build, and here in combat I've had drops to around 25 and it is constantly shooting up and down. You're definitely going to feel it. That's instantly going to be damaging though to a game of this genre, even if it's not the worst frame rate I've seen this far, because the real enjoyment here from this sort of design comes in the responsiveness of the controls and the fluidity of the movement. You know, it feels fantastic mowing down enemies with a quick succession of attacks, but this just keeps on pulling you out of the moment. When it gets particularly bad as well, there's a noticeable delay between your input and the action actually playing out on screen. So where is it by far the worst? And that will be the exploration. Perhaps it's because there's not as much occurring on screen, I guess, so you visually notice it a little bit more. But here I did record drops as low as 22. In the first town, there's a main street that's particularly bad. And when I got to the second city, it was a similar occurrence there. Understandably, it appears to be attached to the number of NPCs on screen, but also the detail in the location around you. I'd actually noted in wide open areas intended for battle, it wasn't quite as bad, but smaller side streets became particularly challenging. It's again just the delay. Every turn has a disconnect, and you may notice I'm a little bit wobbly running around, swaying from right to left, but it's actually because I couldn't quite compensate for the delay that was occurring. You'll also notice it especially when you turn the camera. There is an unnatural stutter, which for me made it incredibly difficult to understand what was happening around me. On a note of this stutter as well, I did notice it during cutscenes as well. There's also a minor delay when you're on the options menu as well. This will no doubt get a little annoying as you do advance through the game, as you'll begin to spend more and more time in them, because you're going to be of course leveling up and shaping the warrior you want to be, but it would be something you could absolutely live with if it was the only downfall. So here's where I'm at with Fate Samurai Remnant. I adore the game. In fact, it's a surprise hit for me at 2023. And if you ask me at the end of the year, I suspect this will make an appearance on my favourite games of 2023. The balance is just perfect between combat, exploration and RPG elements. Sadly though, it won't be the Switch build I'm referencing. Now, is it playable? I would say so, with some frustration at the performance, as it's apparent immediately as soon as you do boot the game up, but I would honestly just choose any version first over this one. It's what I would describe as an admirable effort. You can see how they've tried in so many ways to stabilize the experience, but it's still just not quite enough. We're getting to a stage, honestly, in my opinion, of the system's life cycle now, but unfortunately the hardware just doesn't quite cut it, and I think that's very much the case here. If we could see a patch for a locked 30, however, do know my response here would change immediately. I'd be telling you to go out and buy it on the spot, but only time will tell if KOEI TECMO do that, or if, honestly, it's even possible. So that is Fate Samurai Remnant, and I hate being the bearer of bad news, but I'd describe it as needs a patch. You're just not going to find the same level of enjoyment in this version of the game. Now, if it's your only way to play, then sure, I think you could get through it, as long as you are patient, but just go in aware of the issues. So will you be checking out Fate Samurai Remnant? And let us know in the comments. If you've been playing it already as well, please let me know that too, so we can gush about how good it is. With that, hit subscribe, join us here for reviews, deals, news and lists daily, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.